What's up, guys? It's Minx, and this is going to be sort of like a point 0.5 video, I guess you could say. We're doing a real quick fix to the camera, and when I say real quick, I made some. Firstly, this is kind of annoying, but not insignificant changes. I can see pretty much everything from line 330 line line 226 is changed. This function is changed, not completely different. We'll talk about it. So when I started testing, like trying to fix this, I noticed a few different issues. So the first thing I noticed was the autocorrect moved the camera or moved the player down too, what is it, too high because it was trying to put it to the center of the screen. And I didn't really want that. So I moved them, I changed the tolerance. So for vertical tolerance, it's the top of the player is the top of like the halfway through the screen. I'm even considering like adding more, so we could say like plus V tolerance, and then saying times 3 maybe even to get it even lower. Because I really didn't want the player so high up on the screen. I feel like the player should be low by default. And I don't know if maybe we change this if like the player X is so high or whatever. But for now, I like them at the bottom left. So uh, towards the bottom left, I think the center is fine for the X, but towards the bottom. And then the other thing I noticed was so the primary thing I was trying to fix was the player getting locked into the left or the right side of the screen, or even the top or the bottom can happen sometimes. So that was the main thing I tried to fix. Then I noticed it was kind of working, and it was like it could be better because like we could try and slide the player a little bit in more if the player stops moving, kind of like what Mario used to do, or maybe still does, where if you go fast and you move the camera, it's off to the side now, but you're in the center and the camera's supposed to be following you. After a couple of seconds, it'll recenter back to the player, and that's kind of something I wanted to do similar here. It's not as elegant as how they do it, but it is half decent. And in this video, we're not gonna code together. This is just a fix video. Um, Instead, we're gonna start from the top here from the original method, and we're gonna work our way down and talk about it. So first thing you'll notice are these two Boolean variables. So we have what I call out of bounds. So essentially, if we are outside of our tolerance zones in any axis, we have two of them. We have vertical and horizontal. Then we will say, hey, we're out of these bounds. Let's handle auto move and not try and slide the player or slide the camera back to the player. So you can leave the inside of the if statements alone for now, aside from adding the H out of bounds and V out of bounds. So ignore the fact that mine says adjust camera, true, true here. Instead, just say H out of bounds or V out of bounds, and horizontal out of bounds and vertical bounds or out of bounds should be self-explanatory. The other change I made here that we can do immediately is my V tolerance. Like I said, I'm moving it so the player's at the bottom rather than in the center vertical axis. You can see now it seems to be a little better. Looks like it's shaking now. Now that I've made that adjustment, what is doing that? It wasn't shaking before I did this. So let's go back to 2 and get rid of this. I don't know why that is, to be honest. It should just work, but no more shaking. Um, so anyway, and I'll leave it at V tolerance times 2. And if come back maybe later with an even better fix. But for now, this is fairly solid. So anyway, I changed my V tolerance. It's still different. So instead of saying minus V tolerance and plus V tolerance, I got rid of the minus on this one and multiplied this one by 2. So we still have the same overall V tolerance, which is V tolerance times 2. Just the player's like tolerant location is slightly lower. Well, it's a V tolerance lower. Um, so that's that. And then we're gonna skip. We can actually not skip this one. We're gonna do this. Okay. So the next thing I did is check to see if our horizontal out of bounds or vertical out of bounds got called. Now, think why did we do a variable here instead of just saying, um, you know, if, else if, and then if none of these were true, we just do a else here and do this. Well, the reason for that is if we do if, else if, only one of these could get called in a frame, meaning the camera wouldn't adjust in both directions every frame. So if we were like moving left and right and jumping, it wouldn't go up. Usually that was what I found was the camera wouldn't go up and down, it would just go left and right. So I didn't like that. So I'll leave it at if and use a boolean to check. So if we did not set h out of bounds to true, so if it's false, what I'm doing is checking the player speed. So we are already somewhat center screen. So let's go ahead and check the speed of the player. If the speed of the player is less than 0.5 in either direction, so if we are barely moving, and that's pretty much the point where we're not moving. I tried to do 0, but it wasn't catching. It was kind of weird. So I just do negative 0.5 and 0.5. You could probably even tighten it up a little bit more. But if that's the case, how do we make this more strict? So we take our tolerance and we divide it by 2. That's what I did. You could divide it by any amount. It needs to be less than the H tolerance. If it's less than the H tolerance, then it's essentially going to be like a smaller circle. So if we have H tolerance be from here to a pencil, it's awful. There we go. Do 3. I like the 3. Okay, so we have an H tolerance from here to here. H tolerance divided by 2, so is half of this. So it'd be about less than half. It'd be about here to here. So we want to make sure we take the H tolerance and make it smaller. So I did divided by 2. You can do whatever you want. And then I just came up with a number that seemed to make sense, was 2f, negative 2f. So if we are on the right side, we move it to the left a little bit. And then if we are on the left side, right side, move to the left. On the left side, move to the right a little bit. And then for the vertical out of bounds, it's the same thing. Actually could probably, that's probably what's making it a little jittery. So let's see. Yeah, I could just do the same thing. So I was using this dot adjust camera, and in fact, I could probably do that here. Say this. Actually, we'll just copy the this dot adjust camera. True. It's not camera. It's false. I don't think I like that. Actually, no, I don't like that. There we go. And that's actually probably what was causing the thing to be jittery. So false, true. Copy this. And I'll talk about adjust camera in a second and why we do this. Just for now, just copy the code. I'll be a little bit more descriptive in a second. 2f and negative 2f. Yeah. Okay. So it's the same thing. If we are within that region, we will move the camera by 2f. And now that I've done that, I'm curious, just a real quick test. Let's speed tolerance. Just 3. Is it still jittering if I come down here? Nope, jitter's gone, so that was it. Oh no, jitter's back. Has something to do with my jumping, does it? It has something to do with jumping. I have a theory. I'm not happy about what that theory is, I'll be honest. It's like an earthquake. That's kind of cool. Not really, but okay, so we'll leave it back. It's weird that it does that at that height, specifically. If we go back to this, no more earthquake. It kind of throws my theory out of the window, that's for sure. But that's okay. So let's go back here. So we've got the screen position. So we've got the out of bounds handling. So if we are within bounds, but kind of a little off to the side, it'll kind of push us a little more into the center. So my original theory when I was doing this and I couldn't figure out how to work was we have an outer ring, which is our main, like if we hit the edge of this ring, we move the camera. That was kind of, that's kind of what we ended up with. But I wanted also an inner ring. So if we hit the outside, camera moves. If we are here and the camera's not moving, it'll push us towards the inside of the ring. And that's kind of what we ended up with here now at this point. So that's where we are. Now adjust camera. So adjust camera is a little goofy. I probably could have wrote it. I don't know. I could have designed it a little better, but it is what it is. So the way auto cam works, or this adjust camera, and I labeled it because it's very specific. So we take two booleans, an XY and a forward. So XY is the player and camera, true equals X or false equals Y axis. So if you see if XY is true, we're going to use the player.speed.x and or camera.x. And then forward equals true is up or forward, false is left or down. So if we say forward is true, that means our player's on the right side. And if it's false, then our player's on the left side, and then up and down for the Y as well. So this points towards forward. So the X, Y, and forward point to four different things. So it either points to what is it? Wow. Okay, right. So it points to either X, Y, and if our speed is less than 3, meaning we are less than 3 or greater than -3, meaning we're kind of slow, but we're at the edge, it's going to push it into the center just a little bit so we don't get stuck out there. And if we're on the right side, it pushes it to the left. If we're on the left side, it pushes it to the right, of course. And then otherwise, if it's neither of those, if we're greater than 3, then it just follows the player as expected. So we kind of break out the situations. The situation that caused us to get stuck is we weren't checking for a way to get the player out of the camera's auto move location. We were just kind of sticking them in there, and then when they got there, it just locked on. And then the same thing for the Y. Again, it's goofily written, but it's the 4 scenarios plus technically 3 scenarios for Y, 3 scenarios for X. So feel free to just copy this. I don't really feel too much like explaining it. And honestly, it's gross. So then once you've gotten this stuff written out, we can come back up here, and adjust camera is only called if we are outside of the tolerance range. So, we hit the tolerance range. So we call adjust camera. This is actually why it's not a good idea to use adjust camera here. Although technically it would work, theoretically, because if player speed is like 0 technically, then it would technically do this. But I don't trust it, especially considering the potential earthquake issue with my Y, which I thought had something to do with collisions, but I'm not sure. It goes away when we're not down that far, so not really sure. But this fixes it for our normal parameters. It's a little goofy. I have changed my screen size, so screen size.x divided by y and screen size y divided by 7, or x was 7 and y was 9. No? Yeah, I changed that a little bit to make them a little bit more strict. I think x used to be 9, actually, so I guess it's not that strict, but I thought it was originally 5. So we stop moving, and now there's no like delay like in Mario. If you were to stop doing it, it would take a second and then it would do it. Now we're just doing it. So you could add a delay technically, like you could. A delay would be kind of hard in the context. We may come back to that later, but as we can see, it pretty much works. So if we like do that, if we like, so if you can see here, if I keep my speed up properly, like fully, I can get it to lock. It's kind of hard to get to lock though. I got it to lock that one time. I'm not sure. Theoretically, it'd be really hard to lock because we use a drag coefficient, and instead of just snapping a speed, it changes over time based on how long we've been hitting it. So I don't know. It seems like it's really hard to get locked. Jumping is a little hard because of how fast we jump, so it's like hard to get the camera to be as responsive as we want it. But this seems good enough for me for now. But yeah, so this fixes the camera issue. I just wanted to get this fixed up and added before we move on to something else because I felt really bad that this was kind of busted. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.